Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is Off the Press, a program where we take a look at the headlines making the rounds in our newspapers across board, and then let you make the choice of what to go read in depth. I don't do this alone. I always have company. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Felicity Iziwike, and I have with me Chiposun Akeju, a reputation manager. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. All right, we have a couple of papers. We have the Vanguard newspaper, we have This Day, and some others. We'll just take them one after the other and see how things plays out this morning. What is the screamer on the front page? Vanguard, that's what we're going to start with. A new letter to Buhari on insecurity. Danger ahead if Nigerians resort to self-help. That's Obasanjo in an open letter that is currently a talking point in the country. It has two riders. We're with Obasanjo on this. Ohaneze, SMBLF, we're studying the later ACF. And then Olakuri, mind your utterances, presidency warns leaders. I find details on page 5 of the paper. The death of Olakuri has been, there's so much tough talk, so much daring going around. I'm sure you've heard some of them. Yeah. I'll get to you in a bit. Let me just get to some of the other headlines here. Revamping Buhari's shambolic foreign policy. That's a new word I haven't heard before. Travels of teenage mothers in Plateau State. I think that's a special documentary. The details is on page 26 of the paper. Presidential poll, tribunal overrules Buhari, plays Atiku's video evidence. You find details on page 8. We also have something on insecurity. Okoje cautions Buhari against plunging Nigeria into war. Killing of Fashioti's daughter. We've made some arrests. That's police speaking to douse tensions there. And then the situation in Rivers, there's another angle to it this morning. We have Rivers Gov poll. Supreme Court dismisses suit against Wike. That's on page 12 of the story. A lot seems to be going on all at once in this country. On the back page of the Vanguard, it's usually sports, but I will hold on to that and just take a look at some of the stories making the rounds. I'll just let you pick it. Which one you want to start with?
I'll start with Obasanjo's letter. I think it's important to quickly talk about that. And while it's important, to call the attention of the president to the problem that we're facing in the country, I think that our leaders and elder statesmen need to be sensitive to the nuances of our society. I say this because we need to look at it's a crime, and it's not the exclusive activity of a particular tribe. I think that when we look at it that way, then we will be far from solving the problem. And more also in a country where we're still struggling to bring everybody together under one Nigeria, where a country where we still feel like, oh, this particular tribe or people from this particular region of the country behave in this particular way. Yes, there will be similarities, because it's one of the principles of social construct. If you come from a particular, that's what we even call culture and tradition. That's if the definition, has to do with how people behave in a certain way and a certain area. But I think it will be sad to continue. I think one of the reasons why we've not been able to solve this problem is because we are looking at it in a different way. We are giving it the wrong diagnosis. What we have is a security problem. It is not a Fulani herdsman or anything. It's a security problem. And if we continue to, what has now happened is, because people with a louder voice who have a better platform have continued to label it as a problem that has come from one side of the country and not as a security problem. We are eating up the polity because we are appealing and sending messages that will push people on the emotional side rather than the logical side. The problem here, from my own perspective, is criminals from a particular area of country, from the criminals that have been, their cells and, their groups have been dissipated because of the fight against terrorism in the north. Considering that the fight in the north, the Boko Haram problem, was, what we get to read the most in the news is the bomb blast and all of that. But we've forgotten that there are killings, there are market raids, there are loads of robbery that go on, there are kidnapping. The Abuja-Kaduna road, for the longest period was always in the news because of security issue. It got so bad that the train sometimes had to be, chaperoned, with overhead surveillance. It got so by a moving train because the security situation was so bad. So it is not a problem that is tribal, as it were. Unfortunately, Olakuri, is the daughter of a Yoruba group.
And some would say you're entitled to your opinion, and you seem to be agreeing with the presidency on this. But the group seem to be alleging to the fact that evidence shows that she was targeted. She was targeted for assassination, but where there seem to be, there's some obscurity in who actually perpetrated this act. They're saying the people dressed. This is eyewitness account. Eyewitness account is different from evidence, of course, but they're saying she was targeted. So if she was targeted, is it just a general insecurity problem or a specific kind of insecurity?
It's first a security problem, for crying out loud. The chief security officer of a state in Nigeria was attacked in the same area. The governor of Ondo State's convoy was attacked. So if the governor of a state could be attacked, it is not I don't think this is a tribal issue. This is a security issue. Until we say it as a security issue, we're not going to solve this problem.
Or is it possible that people are looking at it as an excuse to, bring up other issues that has, that needs attention? You did allude yourself to the fact that some sections of this country are being looked at as maybe having some kind of preferential treatment, so to speak. And then there are other parts that seem to be marginalized and not getting what is due to them. So maybe it's an excuse for, agitation for what they think is rightfully theirs and something they say must shoot things off.
Well, if you talk about marginalization, all tribes in Nigeria experience a level of marginalization. Let me tell you, the real marginalization in Nigeria is between the elite and let me call them the non-elites. That's the marginalization in Nigeria. The business deals and the corruptions that go on in Nigeria do not know tribes. They don't. It is the interest of who is going to help me, who is going to help me achieve my objective. It is not the issue of marginalization. It's the fact that, see, if we go back to the time when Niger Delta was a hotbed, so anytime there's a robbery or there's a major highway thing, the next thing everybody is thinking is, oh, it's the Niger Delta guys that are doing it. Now the security problem is coming from the north and everybody is blaming the Fulani. I think we need to look at it first as a security problem, and then we'll be able to solve it. If it's a targeted assassination, it is completely different. There are the people from the north, the Fulani, herdsmen or no herdsmen, are not the force to carry out this dangerous act. I mean, we have a well-publicized kidnapper who is still in court at the moment. Exactly.
All right, so, let's move forward. There are other headlines.
I'm sorry to cut you there. I'm a bit passionate about that story because I feel that if the narrative, Obasanjo made, a very, very crucial point there, that we are on the precipice of what happened in Rwanda. And if we go back in history, one of the tipping points for the crisis in Rwanda was a conversation on the radio. Today, we have conversation on social media. I think we need to be very, very careful about this thing. It is first a security problem, which knows it is not, they were kidnapping people in the north before we started experiencing it in the south. I think what is important for us to know as a people in the country is that the fact that something is not happening in our region does not mean it cannot come to our region. So if the only time we start to pay attention to something happening in another part of the country is when it comes to our region, then we'll continue to have serious life. But if something is happening in the north, there's poverty, there's this in the north, and then people in the south are passionate about it, then I think that we'll be getting closer to solving this problem before it now spreads.
I understand your agitation. I'm sure every true Nigerian is concerned about the situation in the country, and of course we've noticed that much talk seems to be what's rift at the moment, and nobody's actually taking concrete actions that we're seeing. But the good news from yesterday is that some suspects have been arrested, so let's see what happens with that. This day also captures that story on the front page. The Obasanjo calls for national confab, says Nigeria is on a precipice. NNPC awards oil swap contracts to 34 firms. That's it on your screen. Lower commodity prices weaken inflation to 11.22%. You find details on page 8 of the paper. Of course, Obiagbena at 60. That's celebration galore. Celebrating him at 60 years. There's a picture on the front page on that. All right, let's see what's on the back page of the paper. Tuesday with Ruben Abati. Today is still on the man celebrating his 60th birthday. Would you talk about the business part of this for a second before we move to other papers?
Yes. Interesting to see that. I mean, last month I was also here talking about the slight increase in inflation, and then it's good to see that a month after, there's been a bit of a reduction. And I think that while it's what quote unquote celebrating, I think what we need to go for is a single digit inflation. Like one of the industry leaders said recently, that it's usually easy to bring it from like 18 to 11 or 12. The real deal is to bring it from double digits to single digits, because this has a lot of effect on the economy, as it were. And I'll quickly, make reference to a bit of my knowledge in investment. If you keep your money in the bank in Nigeria at about 11 to 12%, most of the time the interest you get on the most common investment product, by the time it's end of the year, and you consider inflation and all of that, your money would have drastically reduced, which is why a lot of people don't invest in Nigeria. Because when you look at most of the investment or even the businesses that are available that usually can give you more than sometimes 7 to 10% year-on-year return on investment, you would see that by the end of the year the value of your money, when you look at it from a deeper sense of economy, as literally is it that they've just helped you save the money or the money is coming to you. So that's what celebrating. With regards to the NNPC awards oil swap contract, I just really hope that we'll be able to have a time in this country where we would be refining our own product and we would not have to continue to do this, because one way or the other there's a lot of subsidy embedded in those contracts, directly or indirectly.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper, some of the headlines. Of course, the front page, what's captured here is the protest against the killing of Nigerians in South Africa. Some lawyers, members of the Anambra State Lawyers Forum, protesting the killing of Nigerians in South Africa in Lagos. This happened yesterday. The front page of the Nation has that on it. The one on killing of Nigerians in South Africa. Enough. That's still a reaction on the matter. Buhari's letter is also captured here. We move on to what's at the very top of the paper, and that is police arrest suspects in Olakunmi's death. That's been captured in other papers as well. And then this one about the governor declaring, Makinde declares 48 billion naira personal assets. That's the governor. He's quite a rich man. Yeah. Seems. Labor to neck, don't raise tariff. The drop in inflation is also captured on the Nation newspaper. Let's see what's on the back page now. There you have it, Marauders on the march. That's Olatunji Dare. Who are the Marauders? You'll probably need to read this one because our guest wouldn't have time to take a look at it. And of course, hardball, we have father and son beheaded. This is a reference to what happened in Rivers State, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, there's a story that's been trending on, and the mother or the wife, I think, was watching while this horrific action was carried out. But over to you now. Which of these would you want to talk about?
I think that the Nigeria Labour Congress to Nigeria Electricity Regulation Commission news caught my eye this morning. Talking about the electricity tariff. I think my opinion to both parties in this news is that number one is the Nigerian, the Regulatory Commission should first of all ensure that the metering of the country, of users of electricity in the country, is properly done before there's any increase in tariff. Because I feel that without that, what we're going to have is an unfair situation where you have some people paying and some people not paying, or some people paying more than what they are consuming. And I think that by the time you are able to, measure what you're taking or what you're using in electricity, it will manage usage, it will regulate, it will help, even the distribution companies to manage energy better and know how to switch while we're trying to upgrade. And I think that the assertion of the labor to say that the elites are migrating from power supply to alternative power sources, I think it's not entirely because of pricing, because from what I know, if you stay in some of the fully serviced estates on this side of town, you recognize that you're paying almost 3 times the value of electricity, because their meters are controlled. It's not directly, they've promised 24-hour service, maybe it's from utility, or it's from
we're time constrained, so I'm just going to have to move on to the next story. I think you should speak on this protest by lawyers.
Yes, I mean, that's the second one I was going to speak on, because the first paper, Femi Aribisala was speaking about the foreign policies of Nigeria, and the question is, we know that, I mean, it's sad that back at home, there's almost, I mean in Nigeria, the value of life is not, it's not anything it's not anything to take home. It's not good enough. I think it will then be difficult to tell any foreigners that we really appreciate the life of our citizens, which is, I mean, when Nigeria won against South Africa at the ongoing AFCON, there was a bit of tension, because we felt like, some of influencers and musicians came on social media to talk about how Nigerians constantly beat them in everything. And there was a bit of fear, at least with the few people that I discussed with, that I hope we do not have any xenophobic attack again. So while you can't really tell Nigerians, oh, come back home if the countries are not safe for you.
Oh, come back to what?
Exactly.
That's the big question.
So I think that what should be done is, we need to find a way to make sure that our foreign policies, because like it or not, there's a relationship we have with these foreign countries, and that we start to communicate that there's, value for our life, and it will start, from home.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper now. The letter again. I think all the papers had it. Obasanjo's letter to the president. He says he prefers to make it an open letter because of the weighty nature of the security situation in the country. There you have it again. In a new letter to Buhari. That's the caption the Punch is taking. It has a couple of writers to that story, as you can see on your screen. Headsman menace growing as president has treated killings with levity. Okay, suspected kidnappers, cow rustlers, robbers and dealers in illegal arms during their parade in Abuja. That's some of them on the front page. That's it. We also have something on typographical error kept man in prison for 14 years after pardon. That just breaks my heart.
Sad.
Like, what typographical error? Anyway, we have NAS members receive decry 12.3 billion naira welcome package. That's something for you. Headsmen behead father, son in fresh plateau attack. That's page 24. Tribunal, the article's stories there. For surety, presidency tells people not to politicize it. Audit. The Ajokuta steel plant is on the front page this morning. As you can see there, $652 million needed to reactivate complete Ajokuta steel plant. That's audit report. Page 25 is where you'll find details. And on the back page of the Punch newspaper, we have soldiers and highways won't solve kidnapping problem. That's the opinion of Azuka Onwuka on the back page of the Punch newspaper. The protest is captured on the back page. There's a protest on the killings of Nigerians in South Africa. There you have it. That's about some of it. Sometimes I think this is just one of many errors that has come up with typographical error. And sometimes I think maybe computers are great and all that, but people should go back to learning typing through using the typewriter, because you make a mistake, it's right there in front of you. You can't skip it. You have to go back.
I don't even
Some
think
people are going to slap my face.
I don't think it's a problem with the device. I think it's a problem with the process. I think that if you've typed the letter and you've printed it out, there's something called proofreading. That's why it's there. So how come you didn't, detect that error? And now in the days of AI, there are apps that, usually even help you read through documents to, detect where the errors are. And all of that. So I think it's more.
It's quite heartbreaking to be held in prison for 14 years.
Absolutely very sad, very sad. But again, it's not only, this is not something that happens only in Nigeria. We've had, sick cases.
Yeah,
maybe
I know, but I mean,
error,
we're fast emotional beings before anything else. And
definitely.
To hear that somebody was kept behind bars, he's not the first person to suffer such fate, of course, but that doesn't make it right in any way.
Not at all.
All right, let's look at the other headlines, please.
I'll take quickly the Ajaokuta. Briefly, I think that we need to sit down and debate if this plant is what the amount of attention it keeps getting every now and then. 652 million, that's more than $500 million to bring that plant back to health. We're no longer, we're more in a digital age than an industrial age. So while I know we need still for a lot of infrastructure development and all of that, but we need to look at, the time value of money and, opportunities for God and all of that. I think that we have to look at it properly before we make a decision. That's a lot of money, and then we keep coming back to this money every time. So something has to be done real fast. Certainly.
I guess that's where we'll have to draw the curtain on today's program, taking a look at the headlines, what's making the round. You've heard some of them. Hopefully, they will help you make a choice on which of the papers you want to buy and, of course, read. It's important to look beyond the headlines, and that's why we always get someone in to help make sense of it. So I urge you, don't just look at the headlines, please. When you can, squeeze in some time, read the details of the stories that catch your interest so you know exactly what's going on. A look at some of the stories in sports just has, I'm not in a hurry to leave, that's something. Insists future is bright for youthful Super Eagles. We also have it will be Trostekong. Algeria was our toughest game. That's another thing on the front page of Complete Sports. We have Musa wants Eagles to end campaign on high. City set to keep sane. That's something for you. Igalo unlucky. Eagles sorry for loss to Algeria. I think that's most of what is here. Let's see from the Algeria coach how I outfoxed Raul. That's something there for you to go read as well. No buyer inside for Pogba. We also have transfer news on the back page of Complete Sports for you. And Vanguard has the usual Mr. and Mrs. Cartoon. We're out of time. I would have taken it for you quickly. But go have a good laugh always. It puts a smile on her face. Thank you very much to Boston for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. Do take care and have a productive day.